Hi, welcome to the second episode of Use Your Power. I'm your host, Craig Davis, and I'm still here. As an audio description, I'm a man in my 40s with short, blondish gray hair and a short beard and a blue shirt with stripes on it. This episode is brought to you by revuptx, which stands for Register, Educate, Vote, and Use Your Power, as in using your power for the disability vote. On today's show, we're going to focus on how to find your representatives, how to get memorable testimony, and we have a special guest, Jeff Miller from Disability Rights Texas. But first, Tessa Goodnight, a producer on this show, is going to give us a short tutorial on how to find your representatives. That way you can get to know them and they can get to know your voice.
Hello friends, this is Tessa's voice here, and we are looking at my iPhone home screen because today we're going to access the Texas legislature online using our mobile phone. The first thing you need to do is open up a web browser. For me, that's Google Chrome. If you're using an iPhone, your browser might be Safari. But whatever it is, open it up. The first thing I have to do is open up a new tab. And that's going to show me the Google search bar. But you can just type right into the address bar of whatever browser you're using. And what you're going to type is txlegis.com. And that's going to take you directly to the mobile version of the Texas Legislature Online, also known as the TLO. As you can see, we have a lot of really useful information here, including sessions times, calendars, the committee schedules, requests for information, and even witness registration. But what I really want to focus on is down here at the bottom, where you see who represents me. If you tap that, that's going to allow you to enter your address and find your Texas representative based on where you live. So, say you live at the Capitol, which is 1100 Congress Avenue. Enter that, your city, which is Austin, and a zip code. And you're going to tap Find in the right-hand corner. And it opens up a map pinpointing your address. And under that, you're going to see all of your Texas representatives, from the Senate to the Board of Education, the House, and the Congressional District. From here, you can use this information to look these representatives up on the TLO site, or you can look for their names on social media and contact them there. I hope this was helpful.
Thank you, Tessa. So last week we were able to show you a little bit of the video of Renee Lopez giving her tips on how to give memorable testimony. She's a longtime advocate and has given invited testimony to the Texas legislature several times throughout the years. And so up next we have the video of her giving her tips and tricks for giving memorable testimony. For audio description, she is a Latina woman with gray hair pulled back, and she uses a motorized chair.
One of the things that I learned being an advocate and speaking before the legislature is that you're only given 3 minutes. And so you want to use that time as well as you can, and you want to leave an impact. And I have found that one of the ways is to give a description that's going to give a visual so that the people, the legislature that's listening to you, can actually visualize something and say, wow, I get that. You know, one of the examples that I used was that people working at a hamburger place gets paid more money than a personal care attendant. So you can get more money flipping a burger than you can taking care of a person with a disability. And and it's obvious. I mean, you can drive anywhere in Austin, you'll see signs at Dairy Queen, at Whataburger, you know, $12.99 to deliver pizza. while an attendant is only getting $8.11 per hour. And so I got so angry one time when I saw these signs, at burger places offering more money for to work at a Dairy Queen or to deliver pizza. And I was like, why can't they see that there's more value in a hamburger than there is in a human being? And so I decided to use that as a testimony to make a point, and also as a visual. And I'm hoping that that it sticks. So I have found, and my way of advocating is to speak slowly, emphasize words, emphasize who you are, emphasize why you're there, and what you want. And if you can get all that in 3 minutes, you will have left an impact. And also a good example, like I had said, using an example of the fact that you get paid more money to flip a hamburger than you do to help a person with a disability. What is wrong with this picture? It gives that excuse me, that visual of that they can take with them. And so you want to leave an impact that way.
Up next, we have a very special guest, Jeff Miller, who is a policy specialist for Disability Rights Texas. And he's going to tell us about a few bills that we need to pay close attention to during this legislative session.
Hello, I am Jeff Miller, and I do work for Disability Rights Texas. And Disability Rights Texas is really interested in voting in Texas, and specifically voters with disabilities being able to access the voting process and to be able to participate the same way as everybody else. So today we're going to talk about voting in Texas, and specifically proposals for new laws that will impact the way that Texans go to the polls. As you can imagine, as a result of last year's elections, voting has become a big topic of discussion for policymakers and at the legislature. So much so that during last month's State of the State address, the governor declared voter integrity as one of the emergency items that the Texas legislature is to consider this session. So as a result, the number of voting bills that have been filed has dramatically increased from the last few sessions, and currently there are over 200 bills that impact voting that have been filed. Today, obviously, we're not going to talk about all 200 bills, but I did want to give you just a sense of the kind of legislation that's being proposed so that you know what's happening, and then give you some ideas, if you're interested, how you can find out more information or hopefully become involved in the process if you're interested. So when we look at voting bills that have been filed so far this session, we can really break them into a few specific categories. The first of these that I'll talk about is curbside voting. And there were some issues with curbside voting during the last election cycle. A lot had to do with inconsistencies around the state and those sorts of things. So two bills that I'll highlight are House Bill 22 by Representative Swanson and House Bill 478 by Representative Gonzalez. Both of these bills would require polling locations to designate spaces for curbside voting. And in some cases, one of the bills would also require there to be a sign that allows voters to know how to access the curbside voting process. One of the other big areas that are being talked about down at the Capitol have to do with ballot by mail or mail-in ballots. It became a big issue during the last election cycle, and so there have been lots of bills that have been filed, some that would increase the access to voting by mail, such as House Bill 76 by Representative Mesa or House Bill 400 by Representative Busey. But there's also some bills that would restrict or put limits on the way that people can exercise voting by mail, such as House Bill 25 by Representative Swanson and House Bill 1725 by Representative Paul. There's a lot of these bills, and they all have a lot of things in common, but some differences. So if you're really interested in that area, it might be something you want to look into. Voter registration is another broad area that is being discussed and considered at the Capitol. Most of these bills around registration would either A, allow for some form of electronic registration, like House Bill 350 by Representative Israel, or would allow things like electronic applications for ballot by mail, such as House Bill 696 by Representative Fierro. There's also been proposals that have been filed that would limit when and how people can request ballots by mail and require more information. And so it's going to be another area that's going to require some following and some determination as to what's going to happen next. One of the big areas that recently has seen a lot of new bills filed is around the area of election integrity. Voter fraud has become a big issue at the Capitol, and a couple of bills, House Bill 329 by Representative Kane and House Bill 335 also by Representative Kane, as well as House Bill 1368 by Representative Leach, would all add into the code greater penalties for people that make mistakes and more limitations on the way that people can assist other people. And so those are bills that we are definitely watching. And finally, the last area that I want to just touch on is there have been several bills that impact the access to the polling process for all voters, but specifically for voters with disabilities, such as House Bill 1170, which would allow people to use electronic devices to assist them in voting, Senate Bill 331, which would clarify the requirements for being an interpreter working in an election, and House Bill 1412 that would clarify that simple mistakes made in the election process are not criminal and shouldn't be prosecuted as voter fraud. However, there have been some bills filed that would potentially decrease some access, such as House Bill 611 by Representative Swanson, which would increase penalties for someone that is trying to assist a voter with a disability. So lots of bills have been filed. There's lots going on. If you want to know more or know more specifically about what's going on, the one way to do this is to access the Texas Legislature online website. And on that website, you can find notices of the hearings that are being held at the Capitol. So in the House, the committee that hears these bills is the House Elections Committees. In the Senate, it's the Senate State Affairs Committee. On Texas Legislature Online, you can find on a daily basis, as well as a weekly basis for those two committees, notices of the hearings they're going to have and the bills that are going to be heard. On that notice, it also gives you information about how you can participate. So in both the House and the Senate, there are ways to submit written testimony to the committee if you would like to do that, or if you're interested in actually testifying in person. There's also information about how to do that, and if you have a need for accommodation of any kind because of a support need, how to request that accommodation. I also want to let you know that here at Disability Rights Texas, if anyone needs some assistance in requesting an accommodation or figuring out how to be part of this process, feel free to contact me. Again, it's Jeff Miller at Disability Rights Texas, and our phone number is 512-454-4816, and we would be happy to help any way we can. So thanks a lot, and I hope that this just whets your appetite to really get involved with the policymaking process during the 87th legislative session. Thanks.
Well, we've come to another end of an episode, and we want to remind you that Rev Up Texas and Use Your Power are a community for people, for Texans with disabilities, their families, their advocates, and their attendants. And we want to hear from you. So any suggestions you have for any show topics, please share them with us at revuptx@gmail.com. And we'd like to give a special shout out to the Houston Center for Independent Living. Thank you so much for promoting our show, and we're glad you're enjoying it. So until March 26th, I've been Craig Davis, and use your power.